Hi, everyone. Welcome to March's Webinar Wednesday. I want to welcome our guest speaker, James Giese. He's going to talk about special needs trusts after I talk about RCAW. So we're going to jump right in. Class, can you give me a thumbs up? Just verify you can see my screen. All right, excellent. So I'm going to minimize that and we will get going. Let's see. There we go. All right, today's topics. First of all, I'm going to touch base on, let's see if I can hide that. I'm going to touch base on what is Respicare Association of Wisconsin. I'm going to give you an overview on what Respicare is, the free training opportunities that we offer, RCAW's grant programs, the Wisconsin Respicare Registry, and then I'm going to turn it over to James, our guest speaker. For those of you that have never joined us, typically on Webinar Wednesday, we get people that come to every single one, and we also have people that come for the first time. So I'll just give a high level of who we are and what we do. We are a statewide nonprofit, and we serve all 72 counties and 11 tribes across the state. We do serve the lifespan, meaning we serve care recipients that are birth all the way through end of life. So the whole lifespan. We have grant programs, and this helps family caregivers get the breaks that they need with respite care, whether it's through the Caregiver Respite Grant Program or the Supplemental Respite Grant Program. These grants are not income-based. We're going to get a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. And we also have, grants for agencies and organizations to help build the workforce. So we'll get more into that. And we also offer free training opportunities for respite people interested in providing respite care, as well as family caregivers themselves and the Wisconsin Respite Care Registry. We're going to get started with a short video on what is respite care.
Respite is a chance for a caregiver to get a break. I'm Lisa Schneider, and I'm the Executive Director of Respicare Association of Wisconsin. People say, well, what is respite? Where do you go? How do I get it? It can be anything and everything that brings you joy or rejuvenation. So it can be as simple as, can you come over to my house and watch my husband because I just need to go to the grocery store. Sometimes it could be as simple as saying, I need to get some sleep. Could you sit here for the night so I could get one night solid sleep because it hasn't happened in 7 days? So that's respite.
When I had respite, I was free to do a lot of things I liked, so I could still get my 9 holes in the golf league, and I could still get to the Y and work out, and maybe go outside and get 2 hours of yard work done. My name is Walter Renner. My wife's name is Aileen. She was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment back in 2007. And by 2009, she had entered the early stages of Alzheimer's. We knew the day would come that, she would move to the memory care, but respite care allowed us to, keep Aileen home as long as possible. And that was our goal all along, that I would, continue to do the things I could do, enjoy life, at the same time, know that she was in good hands with the caregiver.
I'm Harriet Redmond, and my husband and I are parents of Philip. Philip is 26 and he has multiple talents, and he also is challenged by multiple disabilities. We have been getting respite since Philip was little. I don't believe we would be able to do what we do for Philip right now if we didn't consciously take breaks every month, every week, even every day, because we wouldn't have the energy, the spirit to keep going. We need those breaks. Doctors are prescribing respite, which is a great thing to happen because the more that caregivers understand the importance of respite and the impact, the longer that they can be around to care for the person that they are caring for.
Without respite care, if I didn't have those breaks, if I had to care for her 24/7, I think my health would decline very, very dramatically.
We know that we're not likely going to outlive our son, and that someday he's going to be in the care of somebody else. Respite prepares you for that time in life when you may not be the one that's giving the care. When it comes to respite, I can attest to the importance it has had on my life, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I too am a caregiver of a daughter who's 28, has disabilities. If somebody's coming in to provide cares for Kelsey, it's giving me a chance to have respite, whether I want to go take a nap or if I want to go shopping or if I want to get away for the weekend. And for her, it's a chance to get out of the house and go do an activity. So it benefits her as well.
One of her favorite things to do is to go out to dinner. We've seen a lot of movies together. We go to nature centers and to local parks.
That is my fault. My hand hit the computer and I stopped the video. So instead of going back and then getting confused where we left off, I think everyone can get the gist that Respicare is a break for family caregivers in order to take care of themselves and meet their own needs. It can be for a few hours, a few days, a week. Respicare can also look different for everybody. And we're going to talk about that a little more in a bit. There are many benefits to Respicare. These are some of the most profound ones that we have come up with ourselves when we're working with family caregivers across the state. Respicare can increase social engagement and decrease isolation. Oftentimes caregivers are under so much stress and they are not able to engage with their friends like they used to. And oftentimes they do feel isolated, and isolation can absolutely lead to some mental health problems, depression and anxiety. So it's really important to get those breaks. It can boost, or it boosts social, emotional, and physical health for caregivers. It provides them assistance and support. And the other thing I really want to make a mention to is that Respicare benefits the care recipient just as much as it does the primary caregiver. Oftentimes, if a caregiver is burnt out and exhausted, because their job is never ending, how do I want to say this? They might be short, they might be crabby, they might be agitated or irritable. And the care recipient can absolutely pick up on that and understands that. So it definitely helps reduce friction when a caregiver can go get the break and the care recipient can do a meaningful activity with a Respicare provider. And also it allows family caregivers to be able to do what they do even longer, because without those breaks, they're not able to keep up. Now we're going to talk about our grant programs. We have a caregiver respite grant program, the supplemental respite grant program, our group respite grant, and the core grant. Our caregiver respite grant program, one of my favorite things about this grant is, or I should back up and say, one of the biggest barriers to family caregivers being open to respite is they might not trust someone or a stranger that they don't know, or they might only want someone who's very familiar with the care recipient to provide respite care for them. Oftentimes we do have family caregivers that hire from agencies or off the registry, and it's whatever that choice is. But this grant allows you to hire a friend, a family member, a neighbor. You can absolutely hire someone from an agency. Point being, RCAW, we have no preference on who provides the respite care. We just want caregivers to get that break. You can, this grant allows for 5 days in a 90-day period, and applicants can apply for this grant twice a year. There is eligibility criteria, and when I say that anyone is eligible, that is true. We ask that you try something else first. Try another long-term care waiver or another grant first. And the nice thing I will say about the supporting documentation, it either comes from an aging and disability resource center or the county. That's depending on the age of the care recipient. But we've had people come to us and inquire about these grants, and then we help anyone that comes to us and needs us. It's depending on the need of the individual and usually the age of the applicant, depending on whatever that barrier is, we help them application need. But we've had people RCAW wanting a grant, and we'll let them know we need the supporting documentation form. It's fillable and online, so it's really easy for staff from the ADRC or the county to fill it out. But we've had people come to us and they've never heard of the NFCSP, the National Family Caregiver Support Program, or the Alzheimer's Family Caregiver Support Program, or there's right here are the list of the other programs that we ask that you try first, or they're not familiar with CLTS and CCAP, and then we can help them get them to the appropriate county or appropriate ADRC to learn about other programs that can help them. We also help relative caregivers, so if they're enrolled in kinship care or foster care services. So I just want to make a mention really quick to what the supporting documentation. So if anyone has applied for one of the long-term care waiver supports or grants and they're not expecting to receive services or approval within 30 days, or if they've been waitlisted, if they've applied for and they've been denied long-term care waiver supports, sometimes what that can mean is during the functional screen, maybe the care recipient doesn't have a diagnosis that is severe enough, if you will, in order for families to qualify for these programs. If they've applied for and they've been approved, but they have exhausted funds that can provide Respicare, then we can help them. If they've applied for it, but they need the flexibility to hire a friend or family member that's not currently covered by the funding source, we can help. And a lot of times that is anyone that is under the CLTS or CCAP. Now they can have friends and family provide respite care, but they have to meet some training requirements, which we do inform them about, but sometimes the need is right now for parents to get that break. So if the county can just let us know that they are enrolled in these programs, but they need the flexibility to hire someone quickly, or if they've not applied, if someone has not applied because they're ineligible, typically that's for older adults. We don't ask someone from an ADRC to go through a long-term care waiver application process knowing they're not going to be eligible. That's not fair to the ADRC and that's not fair to their time. However, if an applicant were to call the ADRC and let them know, I want to apply for this grant, but I know I'm over income assets, or whatever reason that they wouldn't be eligible, we just ask that the ADRC check that box on the fillable form that they've not applied because they're not eligible. The Supplemental Respite Grant Program, switching gears to the second grant that I want to talk about today, it's the same application process and the same supporting documentation as the Caregiver Respite Grant. The difference is the allowable expense. And the why behind this grant program is we would have professionals and family members come to us and say, I need help with snow removal. I need help with lawn care. Is that an allowable expense under the Caregiver Respite Grant Program? So which it's not. The Caregiver Respite Grant is more for that human resource. This is for supplemental services. So if a family member needs help housekeeping with meal prep, laundry, lawn care, snow removal, transportation, or technology, this grant can help them get that. Like I said earlier, respite is in the eyes of the beholder. And if someone getting a break from cleaning the house and doing snow removal, they're still getting that break. That is still respite care. So this grant can help. It's $250 every 180 days, and they can apply twice a year. All right, I want to talk about the registry. So essentially what the registry is, it's a bridge to connect people who provide respite care to people who need respite care. Anyone can search it for free. Anybody can list themselves on our registry for free. And the end user can search by the county in which they live, the age of the care recipient, and what type of respite that they would like, whether it be in-home, whether it be facility-based, and we do have a few respite camps listed on our registry. Let's see, anyone listed on the registry, they either have gone through our respite care provider training, and the topics of the training are up on the screen, and anyone that's on this call that's interested in switching gears or maybe supplementing their income and you want to become a Respicare provider, listen up. This is a really great free online course. You can start and stop as you go. And it covers all of the topics listed. But what I want to, so I'll let you read through those while I kind of tie this into the registry. So anyone listed on the registry has successfully completed the Respicare provider training, or they're an agency that can provide respite care. Now, we don't have every agency across the state that provides respite care because it's available to agencies that come to us and they fill out a request to have a profile indicating that they do have availability to provide respite care. That then they'll list the ages in which they can provide respite care. And then we do have registry compliance for agencies and for individuals that are listed on the registry, those who have successfully completed the respite care training. Every 3 months, everyone who's on the registry, dated from the time that they received their profile on the registry, and they need to indicate that they're still able to provide respite care, that their contact information has not changed, and any other changes that they want to make to their profile. And then that's verifying to us that they're still able to help people, because the last thing we want is a caregiver making call after call after call and not getting callbacks. I do want to point out that we're not the employer of the provider on the registry, but that registry compliance is to help the end user get to someone that is able to help them provide respite care. This is an example of what a profile would look like on the registry. This is Jolene's. So it'll say their name, their email, their phone number, their address, the counties in which they're available to work, ages, hours, the type of respite, their experience, licenses. I haven't checked the chat and I won't until I'm done with my part of the presentation, but I could probably guess that in there is asking about background checks, because that's a very important question and it's frequently asked. We don't run the background check. This is a consumer-based platform. So it's up to the person hiring the respite care provider to ask for the background check and to run the background check. Now, I wanted to go to this next screen to let you know that we do have other trainings for family caregivers. And if you want, there's the kit for caregivers, knowledge, ideas, and tools. And in there, there's a course that's called How to Hire, Train, and Retain a Respite Care Provider. And in there, it tells you the information and tools you need to run a background check. It also has a list of interview questions. There's 5 documents in there. And the one thing that we did at RCAW is oftentimes we know that caregivers are exhausted, and the last thing they might have time for at the end of the day is to take an online course. It is there and it's available. However, we did separate those 5 documents: how to run a background check, interview questions, things that you should, give the respite care provider a tour of the home and all the pertinent information that you should leave. We separated those documents because if you don't, if you're not able to go through the course, you can still get exactly what you need from just downloading those documents on our website. Anyone on the call today that's interested in, that is caring for a loved one living with a form of dementia, or even if they don't have the diagnosis, if they're having memory issues, we do have a form that you can fill out. It's a dementia generalist for friends and family. This is another training for family caregivers, and it is online and you can start and stop as you like. And we want to make sure that family members have the tools they need in order to keep doing what they're doing. So I see that I'm running short on my time, so I'm going to go ahead and we'll finish up, and then I want to pass it over to James. But I do encourage you to stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook. Our Twitter handle is there, and on LinkedIn. That's where we give most up-to-date things, any new grant opportunities, or we try to really let people know about our trainings, our respite care provider training. So give us a follow. Here is how you can get a hold of me. I'm going to go ahead and I can put this information in the chat when James is talking. And the other thing that I did want to say is we all know that this is being recorded, but I am going to upload the recording to the website as well as my PowerPoint. And if James gives me permission, I'm going to upload his PowerPoint. So if you thumbs up, I can see that. So James gave permission. So if you want a copy of my PowerPoint or James, please go to our website, www.respicarewi.org, and it'll be on the webinar Wednesday page. You can download the PowerPoints as well as the recording to the video. We will have it on our YouTube channel. I did have quite a few people reach out to me asking if this is going to be recorded. So we will make sure that we get it out there far and wide. All right, James, I want to welcome you and I want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over.
Thank you very much. And thank you for that presentation and allowing me to hear that. I've been working with individuals with disabilities. I started out at the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities as their communications director, and then went to Wispact. And really, I did not know enough that I should know about RCAW. So thank you very much. I'm glad to have this information.
Me too.
I'm going to try to share my screen here, and I have 3 screens, so bear with me.
No problem.
I never know which one to share, so. And I shouldn't have done that because I think it
How about
is.
this, James? Would you like me to open up to share your PowerPoint, and you can just tell me the next slide when you're ready?
I think I've got it.
Okay, whatever you need.
Is that it? Can you see it?
We can't see it yet.
Oh, I need to press share.
That's really important, James.
Sorry about this.
That's okay.
Okay, can you see the title screen now?
We can see your Zoom screen. That at least that's the view that I have, that Zoom phone is expanding your reach. I don't see your PowerPoint.
Maybe, let's see, wait a second. Now, can you see it?
We can, yes. We can see the current slide and then the next slide. Which is fine. Let's we're good. Unless
Okay.
you want me to share, whatever you would like.
I will go from there. So just very quickly, I'll get started. I'm James Giese. I'm the Director of Outreach for Wispact. I am not an attorney. I am not a tax professional. I'm not a certified financial planner. So I'll be talking about these in a general way. You do need to go to an attorney to get one of these set up, but I have good news about that. At the end, we do provide a grant to help create these trusts, but we do require that you go to an attorney to set one up. And also, I just want to pause for a second. Thank you for all the respite care providers. I think if anything, we've found out in the last couple of years that care providers are very, very important for the functioning of our society. And respite care workers are like the superheroes of the care provider world. You not only provide care, but you help that primary caregiver get a little break as well. So thank you very much. The way I like to talk about these is, so in general, these can be thought of as the 3-legged stool for somebody's financial management and planning. So the first leg of the stool is your income. The second leg of the stool is any kind of public benefits that you're on. And the third leg of the stool are these financial tools. And for individuals with disabilities, those financial tools include the special needs trust and ABLE accounts are another example. So Wispact, our mission is to improve the lives of people of all ages with disabilities across Wisconsin through the management. We are a trust administrator of the special needs trust to provide more choice, more opportunities, and a better quality of life. Wispact was founded in 2003. The federal law establishing the special needs trust was in 1997. Wispact was founded in 2003 by the elder law practicing community of Wisconsin, the attorneys that write the trust. They needed somebody to manage the trust, as well as some disability rights organizations such as Disability Rights Wisconsin and the Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. So they all got together and said, hey, why don't we do these trusts in Wisconsin? And so Wispact was formed. Just very briefly, I like to tell people about the structure of these trusts. So when you're talking to an attorney, this helps you understand how these trusts work. You have the settler, that's the person that contributes the money. The trust protector, our trust manager, like a Wispact. The trustee is the institution that holds the money. And then finally, all of this is done for the benefit of the beneficiary. So Wispact, and here you can see the settler can be the beneficiary themselves doing a self-funded trust, or you can do a third-party trust, like parents will contribute money for their child. And then the trust protector, trust manager is Wispact. And then our trustee is Capital First of Milwaukee. And then all these distributions that are come out of the trust are done for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. I tend to go off the slides a little bit and kind of talk about these from a layperson's understanding. So why would you want to get one of these trusts? So basically, if you are an individual with a disability and you're on some kind of public benefit, you have a $2,000 asset limit. These trusts allow you to put money aside in the trust. It is considered exempt from your income. So you can still collect your public benefit, but you have this additional resource set aside in the trust. These are not a divestment of money, and I'll explain that a little bit later when I talk about the two types of trust. So what you're doing here is you preserve these excess resources that you might have while maintaining your ability to collect a public benefit. With Wispact Special Needs Trust, they are professionally managed, and those distributions are done by IRS regulations. So that's what Wispact does. We provide those distributions from the trust, keep a record of that, and then at the end of the year, provide the tax documents to say, yep, IRS, this was kept as an exempt resource. This person can still collect their public benefit. By the way, very briefly here, the difference between the ABLE account, one of the differences between an ABLE account and a special needs trust is the special needs trust is professionally managed. ABLE accounts are what's called self-administered. They are administered or managed by the beneficiary and their support team. So Wispact only does special needs trust in Wisconsin. We do require that you go to an attorney to get one of these set up. I'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, even if you are over age, to get one of these trusts, you have to have a formal disability determination. But so that's why this, even if you're over age 65, you must have that disability determination. Yep. So if you're over age 65, you need that disability determination. And here's the lay person's understanding of this. The way I understand this is the state, if you're elderly, the state really doesn't require you to go out and work 8 hours a day, right? Your ability to do continuous work is one of the measures of your disability. And so you can get what a MATA application, a Medicaid eligibility application, and working with your attorney, that can serve in lieu of this formal disability determination if you're over age 65. And please don't quote me on that last part to an attorney when you're working with the attorney. That's the way I understand it. So what are the scenarios for getting one of these trusts? What are some examples of why you would get one of these trusts? And one of the examples is if you are on public benefits and you suddenly get an inheritance of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, your option there is to either spend it down to get below the 2,000 or to put it into one of these trusts. And so the examples here, inheritance, a divorce settlement, you sell some property, something like that, you can put this additional money into the trust rather than quickly and wastefully kind of spending it down. So only generally, I'm talking here about cash, putting cash into the trust. Although you can put what are called unique assets into the trust as well. Things like houses, cars can be put in these trusts, but please talk to your attorney about that. I'm going to be talking about these more from the standpoint of putting cash into one of these trusts. As I mentioned, Wispact, we are a pooled community trust. We have over 4,000 beneficiaries in the state of Wisconsin. Our beneficiaries are all over the state. We work with the beneficiaries and their advisors. You can have one or more trusted individuals named as an advisor to the trust, family members, etc. Wispact is, we have a very active board of directors. A lot of these elder law practicing attorneys are on our board. Financial advisors are on our board. Advocates are on our board. They are actively involved in what we do. We have a staff of 16 now. And we have this second part where we have 2 attorneys on staff. They review trusts that get created by other attorneys. They review those trusts and approve them. Those attorneys also work with our beneficiary specialist to ensure that the distributions we are making meet the IRS regulations. The way Wispact works is we assign a beneficiary specialist to each account. And as I said, that beneficiary specialist works with both the beneficiary and the advisors to the trust. And lo and behold, we also can provide basic information. Like that's me. That part of the slide is me. Number one question I get from people on these trusts or thinking about doing one of these trusts is what can I use to pay for? The beneficiary can access the funds in the trust at any point, and they must do so according to these IRS regulations. And the main rule on distributions is the money can only go for the sole benefit of the beneficiary. And what that means in practice is that we cannot dispense cash from the trust. We have to have some kind of receipt or documentation to indicate that product or service has gone to sole benefit. The other rule on distributions from the trust is it depends on what kind of public benefit this individual is on. And again, this is the lay person's kind of way of understanding this. This is the way I understand it. Please talk to your attorney if you have a particular distribution. But the way I understand it is SSI should be sufficient for your food and shelter. So in that case, we cannot pay for food and shelter. But Wispact can work with that beneficiary. Are there bills we can pay? Phone bill, cable bill, internet costs, travel costs, transportation, health and beauty aids, dental expenses. So are there bills we can pay that might free up some of your money for under that $2,000 limit to help pay for your food and shelter? Is the distribution prudent? This one can be a little bit confusing. The example I will give is a beneficiary will call us and say, hey, I want a new drum set. Great. Entertainment, music, that's sole benefit. Go ahead, buy the drum set. But then the next week we'll call up and say, hey, I want a new drum set. Well, what happened to the old drum set? Are you going to turn around and try to sell that for cash? We cannot dispense cash from these trusts. So that would be denied. Then so the idea here is also, does the distribution violate any other trust or benefit rule? And ultimately here, Wispact is the financial fiduciary for this money. So we are going to be making that distribution request based not only on the experience of our beneficiary specialist and their training, but also our 2 attorneys on staff, as well as, and I know this has happened, our attorneys have gone to outside counsel to check and make sure that we are doing this properly. And here's just a quick rundown of some common distributions: dental expenses not otherwise covered, private room differential, a private caregiver, a very common one, respite care, definitely should be in there, entertainment, travel, health care, and prescription Medicaid copays. One of the things, I do not like to sugarcoat the distribution process for beneficiaries. One of the things we can never do is dispense cash from the trust. We need some kind of receipt or documentation for all these requests for distributions. It's a little bit of a hassle. It's not like going to a bank and getting out cash. We can try to ease this process a little bit though. We can do things like reoccurring bill payments. I want this phone service throughout the year. Rather than doing 12 distribution requests, you can set that up with your beneficiary specialist and pay that vendor directly out of the trust. Again, we can do direct payments to vendors. I got this car repair. The auto mechanic says it's going to be about $1,200. The auto mechanic sends us an invoice and we can pay that mechanic directly. We can do reimbursements to trust agents. I went out and bought some clothes for this beneficiary, turn in the receipts, get reimbursed. We can do credit card payments. We do need, with the credit card payments, it's got to be more than just the credit card listing. We do need, I bought this pair of shoes, women's shoes, for $45 rather than just a line on the credit card statement. Can't use these to give out cash gifts to people or buy gifts for others. It's got to be sole benefit. A lot of our beneficiaries, an example, they live in a group home. We can pay for, 4 people in the home. We can pay for their cost of the utility bills. One of the things that I mentioned about the SSI, so with SSI, the way I understand this is even the IRS doesn't want you to be kicked out of your home. So let's say you've gotten 3 months behind on your rent. We can go ahead and get you caught up using money from the trust and then have your SSI reduced for a period and then have it reinstated after you get back caught up again. All right, so there's, as I mentioned before on that second or third slide, there's 2 types of trust you can create. And you really don't have a choice in this. It's dependent on the source of the funding. When the beneficiary themselves is putting their own money in the trust, that is a self-funded trust. And it's also called, to make this confusing, we also call that a Wispact Trust 1. So that's when the beneficiary is putting their own money in the trust. Now, the other type of trust is the third-party trust. That's when a third party puts money in there for that beneficiary. An example would be a parent putting money in there for their child. Uncle Joe leaves some money for his nephew. That is a third-party trust. Beneficiary uses these the same during their lifetime. The only difference is what happens to the remaining assets in that trust on the death of the beneficiary. So this is where I mentioned earlier, these are not a divestment of money. What you're really doing here with the self-funded trust is you are setting this money aside to avoid a wasteful spend down, quick wasteful spend down of money. This allows you to use this money over time. Because in the self-funded trust, any remaining assets in that trust are subject to a state recovery by the state. Whereas the third-party trust is not subject to a state recovery because the state essentially says that money was never that beneficiary's to begin with. Somebody else put that in there for them to use. So in that case, any remaining assets in that trust go to any remainder heirs or beneficiaries that are named when the trust is created. The other thing about these trusts is you can put additional deposits in these over time, but you cannot mix the funds between the two. For example, some of our beneficiaries have 2 trusts. They'll have their own self-funded trust. They may be working, getting up over that $2,000 limit, putting that additional money into their own self-funded trust. but they also have a third-party trust that their parents have created for them. So you can put additional deposits in these over time, but you can't mix the funds between the two. And it looks like I've got a couple of things in the chat. I'm going to try to just set those aside, try to finish this up very briefly, just a couple more slides here. So one of the things about Wispact is in that self-funded trust, it is subject to a state recovery by the state. But the state of Wisconsin says if it doesn't pay back 100% to the state, any remaining assets go into Wispact's retained fund. Now, that retained fund cannot be used for any of our operating expenses. It can only be used for other beneficiaries. And as you can imagine, these estate recovery bills can be quite extensive. Over somebody's lifetime, they can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You might just have a couple $1,000s left in your trust. So what happens is that money goes into Wispact's retained fund. That is our charitable fund. And we have a couple of programs. One program is our creation fee grant. So if you are doing a self-funded trust under $75,000 or a third-party trust under $90,000, and by the way, Wispact's minimal trust size is $750. You could literally start a trust with us for $750. But if it's under $75,000 for the self-funded or under $90,000 for the third party, we provide a grant to the beneficiary. You don't need to pay it back for up to $2,000 of the attorney fees. And in general, that $2,000 will cover the creation of the trust. So essentially, that attorney is going to be your legal advocate. They'll explain all of this stuff to you. It's not the director of outreach talking. It's your legal representation when you create these trusts. So that's one example of our grants. We also have a program. If you ever go to zero in your trust or get very low in your trust, you can apply for up to $5,000 a year in grants. That doesn't mean we just give you $5,000. You do have to apply for it. But in general, if it meets the sole benefit rule, it's approved. Very common dental expenses, a very common one that's very important for people to have good dental health. And bills there for an implant or something could be $4,000 or $5,000. You may just have a couple $100s left in your trust. Burial trust is another thing. You can purchase a burial trust out of these. So you might have a couple $100s left in your trust. You can go ahead, or zero in your trust. You can go ahead and get a burial trust. But you know, really anything that is sole benefit is approved. We got a letter the other day from an individual. We bought him a new washing machine. It saved him from walking down to the local laundromat in the Wisconsin winter. So a very good program from Wispact, this other $5,000 a year. I wanted to just briefly, I'm going to go very quickly through ABLE accounts. If you need more information on ABLE accounts, there is the National ABLE Alliance. One of the things, so ABLE accounts they are also an exempt account. You can put money aside in these accounts. They don't count against your asset limit. One of the things about ABLE accounts is Wisconsin does not have an ABLE program, but as a Wisconsin resident individual with a disability, you can go to another state to get an ABLE account. So they're kind of like 529 savings plans. Every state has a little bit different program. That National ABLE Alliance website has a comparison chart of the different states. And if you do get these, I suggest you look at that. ABLE accounts, as I mentioned, are self-administered by the beneficiary and their support team. One of the things about ABLE accounts is they are designed to be used for everyday household expenses. So even if you do receive SSI, you can use this money in the ABLE account to pay for those everyday household expenses. And anyone can contribute to the account, even if the beneficiary or a third party can contribute to these accounts. One of the disadvantages of the ABLE account is you have to have acquired your disability before the age of 26. So they are for the so-called developmentally disabled. So if you're elderly, you could not get one of these. ABLE accounts, they are subject to a state recovery regardless of who contributes to them. So self-funded or either a third party, any proceeds remaining in any assets remaining in there will be subject to a state recovery. They do have contribution limits. So if you got an inheritance of $50,000, $60,000, these ABLE accounts have an $18,000 per year contribution limit. And there are lifetime limits on how much you can put into them. And so that I know I ran through that very quickly. I will give you my contact information. You are welcome to call me and ask questions. And I'll take some questions as well. By the way, Wispact we are the national, or one of the national leaders in special needs trust in the country. We have one of the larger special needs trust, pooled community trust, in terms of both assets under management as well as number of beneficiaries. These special needs trusts can be a great option, financial option for somebody to avoid that wasteful spend down of money. And they help keep a person healthier, stay in your home longer, pay for some additional care. They can be a great thing. That is it. Rachel, do you want me to just kind of maybe run through some of the questions, or?
That would be great, James. If I can ask you the questions and go through them. Tricia asked if we didn't have an attorney, would someone at the ADRC have knowledge of this special needs trust or an elderly benefits specialist, for example?
Yep. So at wispact.org, we have a list of attorneys by county that do this kind of work. So and I don't recommend any particular attorney, but what I do recommend is go ahead, look through that list in the county, or if you are in a county that doesn't have one, maybe a neighboring county, are they convenient for you? Do they know about that creation fee grant? They apply for that during the creation process, so they don't charge you. But all the ones on that list should know about that grant. But I just find it's helpful when talking with attorneys to be upfront, like how are you going to get paid, things like that. And yeah, go through that list. talk to them. Are they available to do the work? And that list is on our website at wispact.org. It's by county. There's a couple of counties that don't have these elder law practicing attorneys. And also, all we require is that they be a Wisconsin licensed attorney. If you're working with an attorney like on estate planning or something, and they feel they can do this work, please call our attorneys if they have questions. So get those attorneys talking. And they serve as a resource to do these trusts.
Awesome. And there was a few other questions. It looks like there's quite a community in the chat. People are asking questions and then
Yeah, I know.
others are answering them. So that's great.
Judicare, I know they've called me before. I don't, they've kind of talked to clients about this service. I don't know if the attorneys there, I think would go ahead and recommend one of the attorneys on our list usually.
Okay. I do want to make mention that I put the link in the chat. That is to our website, or specifically our webinar Wednesday page. If you scroll to the bottom, there's a copy of my slides from today, as well as James, as well as his slides while he was presenting. I went ahead and got that plugged in there for anyone that wants the slides right away. That is also where I'll be updating the recording, and it will also be on our YouTube page. Tim, I believe so. Someone emailed me during your presentation and said that they didn't get the link to the record. They didn't get the link to log on. So I sent it right away, and I just want to assure everyone that this is recorded and will be available.
Yeah.
Are there
And please call me if you've got detailed questions. This one on MA expenses, is it correct that if a self-funded trust is not able to pay in full the MA expenses incurred by the state, Wispact keeps the amount that is left? So that was essentially a question, I believe, about in the self-funded trust, any remaining assets are going to be subject to estate recovery. Okay. And really to expand on that a little bit. So in the self-funded trust, any remaining assets are subject to estate recovery. But there is a scenario where it would pay back the state 100%. And then if there was a remainder up over that 100% after payback, it would go to any remainder heirs that are named. But the more common scenario is those can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. You might have just a couple $100 left in your trust. Then it goes into Wispact's retained fund. That's our charitable fund. Yep. Okay. Guar, sure. Yeah, dental expenses. I'm getting an implant right now. I think dental, it is just so important for people's health and stuff. I just wish, so, dental expenses is a big one that we pay for.
Are
okay.
admin fees covered? I'm not sure if that.
Yeah, admin fees. Just very quickly on this, okay? So, yep, ABLE accounts. These very important to check the administration management fees on ABLE accounts as well as special needs trust. So Wispact does charge a monthly management fee. Now, here's the thing, and I've got to be very careful how I say all of this. I can't use my typical layperson's. I am not a financial planner, but so Wispact is a pooled community trust. We have over 4,500 beneficiaries. We have almost 190 million in total assets. That 190 million is professionally invested for us by a firm called TrueLink of California. Now, these really shouldn't be thought of as investment accounts, because the main reason you're getting this is to protect your ability to collect a public benefit. But we do manage, these do have and generate investment income. And historically, we have managed to make enough investment income to cover our management sub-accounts management fees, plus they might earn a little extra investment income. But the idea here is we are being a good financial fiduciary. We're trying to protect the principle of this trust. These really shouldn't be thought of as investment accounts, but we offset that management fee, and there's no guarantee that the stock market might go down next year, right? But in general, we are able to offset that management fee. Yep, and our fee schedule is online. It's based on the amount of the trust. Okay, it looks like Lisa has plugged that in. And Lisa, if somebody wants to do that calculation, I can do that calculation for the fees as well for them, because it's got a lot of little small print in there. So our trustee charges a little bit of a fee. Our investment advisory firm charges a little bit of a fee. So I can do those calculations if somebody is really interested in that.
James, are you okay if I go ahead and pop your email address right into the chat? It is available on
Yep.
the PowerPoint recording, or excuse me, on the PowerPoint that's available, but I just want to make it, everyone on here is hard enough.
And Rachel, I can talk about these all day. I'm so glad that you had me on. I've learned so much about RCAW. Thank you very much. If anybody has any questions about any of this, please give me a call. And thank you for being a great audience. I'm finally starting to do in-person conferences again. And I so have missed that the last couple of years because Zoom, I don't know, most of you may have just already given up on me, but I'm glad you kind of stuck here and listened to my presentation. It's a lot to take in. And also it really depends on the person and the scenario. So that's why you talk to that attorney. Yep, sorry. But thank you so much for having me.
No need to apologize, James. No need to apologize.
Thank you, everyone.
I can't thank you enough. And this obviously, let the numbers tell the story. This obviously is a very important topic to people. As we had, I checked, 158 people registered for this webinar. So
that's crazy.
So thank you everyone for coming. I hope that we were able to answer some questions. I hope your minds aren't blown with all the resources that we've given you between RCAW and Wispact. But please feel free if you have any questions about RCAW to reach out to me, or any Wispact questions, reach out to James, and stay tuned for the recording.
Thank you all. So much, have everyone. A great day. Thank you so much.
Take care.